what we're focused on is controlling insurable risk. So then that begs the question, what is insurable risk? Insurable risk is really easy. Anything you can buy insurance for. So I'll give you a common example. If you're a small business owner and you have a building, you have the risk of fire. So what are you going to do? You're going to buy property insurance, right? So risk control is concerned with how are we trying to control that risk? And so what are some practical things we could do?
The following podcast is brought to you by Thryv. Manage, run, and grow your business all from one dashboard using one login. Small business runs better on Thryv.
Hey, this is Gordon Henry at Winning on Main Street. You know, as an entrepreneur or small business owner, you love to think about new products and how to grow revenue, but you also need to think about what can go wrong. And this week's guest can tell you all about that. Our guest is John Morlan. He's with Smarter Risk. He's been in the insurance and risk management industry for over 20 years and specialized in what's called the InsurTech space, like insurance technology. He's worked with numerous companies, saving them millions of dollars in insurance costs through the development of risk control and safety programs. His company, Smarter Risk, which we'll talk about, has developed an app that automates the process of creating these programs, allowing businesses to qualify for the best insurance rates, which I'm sure you want to do. In addition to his impressive career achievements, he's an advocate for small businesses. He understands the unique challenges they face, and he's passionate about helping you succeed. He's speaking to us from his hometown of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And what should you, our listeners, get out of this episode? Well, again, as an entrepreneur, you need to think about what can go wrong as well as what can go right. And John can tell you about the insurance you need and how you can save money. So excited to meet you, John. Let's dive in. Maybe you could just start by walking us through your career journey and what led you to being with us today.
Oh, wow. So we'll have to go back in time a little bit. I actually didn't know anything about insurance when I applied for a job with Mutual of Omaha. I thought, hey, this seems like an interesting business. I was young at the time. I was like, let me give it a go and see how it goes. So I got the job with Mutual of Omaha. I worked there for a couple of years. Then I got a chance to go and work with a commercial insurance carrier, Century Insurance. Worked for them for several years. And that was when I was really first exposed to risk control. And so just for the audience, so they understand how this kind of works, when you apply for insurance, you'll get with your agent. They fill out an application. They send that to an underwriter. Underwriter takes a look at the application, gives them a limited amount of information, but usually it's enough that they feel comfortable writing the risk. And so they'll quote it. The insurance agent comes back to you, and then they bind your insurance. Now, something's happening kind of in the background after the fact, just for practical reasons. But many times the underwriter will say, well, we want a risk control consultant, or sometimes called a loss control consultant, to go out and do a risk assessment. And this is where things can kind of go wrong for insureds, small business owners, and for agents too. And I remember as a young agent, one of the first visits my insured got did not go so well. And they got hammered. And so I had the job of going back to that insured and explaining to them, hey, the insurance company actually wants more premium. So you're going to have to pay a little bit of additional premium. And me being the curious person I was like, well, how does this risk control thing work? I didn't know much about it back then. So I asked them, I said, well, will you give me copies of the reports so I know what you're looking for? And so they did. They gave me copies of the reports. And I thought about it when I started going through the reports and started talking with some of the loss control, risk control people. And I was like, wow, this sounds like maybe a career path that I'd want to take. I'm not really that good at sales. Maybe I'd be much better at this. But yeah, and that's where I got my start. And so I learned the ropes, spent 5 years with ISO, 7 years independently, primarily focused on small middle market accounts. But honestly, I was kind of burned out at that point. I'd been doing it for 13 years. I didn't feel like, professionally, I was really going like, it was kind of the same thing over and over again, right? I wasn't growing. And the other frustration was, I was working with these small business owners, and a lot of times they would say to me, John, you leave me with these list of recommendations, and I have no idea how in the heck to put these in place. I mean, what is a bloodborne pathogen program? I don't even know what that is, and you're telling me I need to write one. And so I would always give them the same answer we always gave them. Hey, go back to the recommendations. They'll give you guidance. And I always kind of felt like a half answer to me. I felt like there's probably a better way to do it. And so, of course, that's kind of what spawned the idea for the app. And that's kind of why we're here.
Great. Well, we'll get into the app in just a minute. When did you know you wanted to be your own boss? Did you have early entrepreneurial influences?
I always, ever since I started selling commercial insurance, I always admired entrepreneurs. I always thought, wow, this is someone who went out on their own and did it on their own. I mean, I went out on my own with after being with ISO and was, an independent consultant for 7 years. And so you learn a lot during that process. But I was always fascinated by entrepreneurship.
Before we get into the details of the new product, I have heard that you're sort of a tech junkie, that you're very interested in computers. Um, how did you become passionate about technology and sort of using that in your career?
Well, I hate to say it this way, but I'm kind of lazy. And I'm lazy in a good way. I think, especially when you're exposed to a process that's faster and more efficient. I mean, why go back and do it the other way? Why do it the hard way, right? And I think that influence actually was early on. I remember I was probably 8 or 10 years old. I've never really told this story, I think, but my mom bought me a book called The Life of Benjamin Franklin,
Mm.
and I read about his life as a young child and was totally fascinated by him. And then later Nikola Tesla and other folks, Edison. And I was just always fascinated with technology and with kind of futurist viewpoints. But yeah, I always loved technology. In my early 20s, I started building computers. I got online, found a YouTube video, and was like, "Hey, let me order a bunch of parts and build a computer." So I did that, and just was always interested in software and hardware, and thought, "Hey, this is a way in which we can make our lives better." And so
Mm.
why shouldn't we embrace this, right?
Very cool. So let's shift a little bit to insurance and small business. What are the insurance needs of small businesses? You know, the average small business who's, electrician or plumber or roofer, what do they need in terms of insurance? What should they be thinking about?
Well, as far as insurance goes, now I'm not a licensed agent any longer, so but I can tell you from my past, and most small business owners require some of the basics. Almost every state in the union, unless you're Texas, if you have 5 or more employees, some states are even more stringent, you have to have workers' compensation insurance. So you have to insure against the risk of worker injury. And then most small businesses, they'll have a building, so they need property insurance. They can get sued, so they need liability insurance. And then a lot of small businesses will have a fleet exposure, so you've got to have some kind of fleet insurance, some kind of commercial auto insurance. So
Okay,
typically,
so
that's what
that's
we run into for most small businesses.
pretty substantial. Several things to think about there. So, what
Hmm.
is risk control for small businesses? What does risk control really mean and its impact on their insurance premium?
What we're focused on is controlling insurable risk. So
Mm.
then that begs the question, what is insurable risk? Insurable risk is really easy. Anything you can buy insurance for. So I'll give you a common example. If you're a small business owner and you have a building, you have the risk of fire. So what are you going to do? You're going to buy property insurance, right? So risk control is concerned with, well, how are we trying to control that risk? And so what are some practical things we could do? We could install a fire alarm. We could install smoke detectors. We could install a sprinkler system. We can make sure fire extinguishers are available. So those are just some of the things that you could do to control your risk.
Okay. And what are some common risk areas, a small business owner might overlook? Are there things they should pay more attention to than they might first think about?
I'd probably say that the challenge in a lot of ways for small business owners is having the documentation in place. There's a reason most small businesses don't qualify for the best insurance rates, and it's because they don't have their programs or policies. They don't have that documentation in order. And the documentation isn't there just for documentation's sake. Policies tell us as a company what you're going to do, and procedures are how you're going to do it. And this is really, really important that you have those clear expectations laid out and that you have a system and a process in place. And we find that companies that have those systems and those processes in place have what we call lower loss ratios, which just means you have fewer claims. And those companies who have fewer claims, they pay less money for insurance.
So let's get into the Smarter Risk app. You came up with an app that is supposed to help small businesses. Why don't you just tell us what it does and why small business should really care about this?
The big challenge for business owners, and it's the same thing they told me for years, is, hey, I don't know how to write a policy for that. I don't know how to put a program together. If you can tell me what goes in it, I can read it, I can implement it. But that's the heavy lift for them. So with our app, we use the assess, improve, share. And we break it down into 3 basic steps. So in 15 minutes, you can do an assessment. You understand what your risks are. You can make improvements because we have a list of recommendations that are generated. And then we have some automation tools you can use that will help you generate your policies, give you a forms library so you have all the forms you need to implement those policies. And then you can even generate what we call a dynamic risk report. And what this does is it's a risk report that just reflects your latest risk profile. Once you get your business in good shape, you're a good risk, you can then leverage this report with your carrier to get better rates. So, and that's what it's all about. And that's the problem we see with businesses. A lot of times it's not only just putting all these processes in place, and our app is kind of a step-by-step guide. It walks them through the whole thing. But then it's communicating those improvements to the insurance carrier, which is really, really important. So when you do that and you communicate those improvements to the insurance company, you'll see savings over time. It's just the way it works.
Okay, so a small business should care about this because if they use or any business should use the app, and at the end of the day, it's going to save them money on their insurance premiums.
Yeah, and we don't actually say save them. We say it's going to help you qualify for the best rates. Everybody has a different scenario, right? Everybody has a different specific situation, but that's the goal, is to help them qualify for better rates. And as a bonus, your employees go home with fingers and toes.
Got it. So, is this something a small business owner could do on their own? They can go to, I guess, smarterrisk.com. Is that your website?
That's it.
And just access the app and fill out the information themselves.
Yeah, that's how it works. So when you go to the website, you can sign up for an account. Once you start the process, it takes 15 minutes to do the assessment. At the end of the assessment, it generates recommendations for improvement, so you know what you need to do to improve your risk. It'll give you a risk score, and it'll give you the ability to generate a risk report. So it walks you through step by step how to do everything. And as you complete your recommendations for improvement, your score improves and your report updates automatically. So that's kind of the step by step. And then if you want the automation tools, we have a subscription product for that, and you can automate the development of your safety and risk control program. So for a lot of small business owners, they can do it, but it typically takes about 6 months, a lot of Googling, a lot of meetings. With our app, it takes about 6 seconds to build a policy.
Now, you focused on the improvements. I'm a homeowner, and one improvement I've been thinking about is a leak detection system, because when I'm away, you want to know if maybe you sprung a leak in your pipes, or I don't know, if you have an ice maker or something like that. Leaks can happen lots of places, and that can cause devastating losses if you have water damage. Is that the type of improvement you're talking about?
No, this is traditional risk control improvement. So these are proactive measures you can take as a company to improve your risk. So, for example, as part of your safety program, you should have a bloodborne pathogen program. You should have a hazard communication program. You should have safety rules with disciplinary procedures. So these are the things that you need to implement as a company. Again, I go back. When you write policies tell us as a company what you're going to do, right? And so this lays out for everyone, this is our safety and risk control program. And this lays out for the insurance carrier, this is what we're doing to control our risk. I actually was talking with an insurance agent the other day, and he put it better than I ever could. He said business owners need to stop focusing on getting quotes for their insurance. They need to start marketing their risk. Because guess what? Insurance companies want to partner with companies who are doing a good job controlling and managing their risk. And so our system, it's just plug and play, and our system just helps small business owners do that.
Now, some of those things you just mentioned, bloodborne pathogens and stuff like that, I don't imagine your average business owner or contractor knows how to put in place a bloodborne pathogen system. So do they need a consultant to help them do this?
That's the great thing about the app. Instead of paying $5,000 to have a consultant write all your policies and procedures, you can just use our app. So what happens in the background, this is why the assessment is so important. We always start with the assessment, because as you answer these questions about your risk, we're building a risk profile in the background. So we know what policies you need. And then we know the details that should go into creating that policy. And then the app can do it for you.
Got it. Maybe it would help if you could share a success story of how Smarter Risk has reduced risk and saved money for a small business that you've worked with.
So I have a really interesting case study. There's a company that they they install and they fabricate these big, beautiful wooden beams. They design, install, and fabricate these big, beautiful wooden beams. They put them in like high-end homes or small commercial properties. They'll put them in, and they're a case study for us. And so we set them up with the software. They're going through the process of implementing all the changes that they need to make, putting all their policies and procedures in place. They're about maybe 3 months from renewal at this point with their insurance carrier. They've had 2 fairly serious workers' comp claims. They get a notice from their carrier they're being non-renewed. This is not good. This typically means you're going to go somewhere else and you're going to pay more for insurance if you get non-renewed by your carrier. Well, their agent scrambles to find them another carrier and finds them one at about the same rate and about the same coverage. But guess what it's contingent upon, Gordon? Take a wild guess. A risk assessment.
Okay.
So they send out someone to do a risk assessment. And right before she leaves, she says, "Oh, you guys are doing a great job." But she said, "There's an exit sign in this interior office. You guys need to put an exit sign up." And she said, and before she left, she said, "You guys aren't going to get any other recommendations from me," which is kind of surprising because at the office, they call me the high risk queen. I put more companies in the high risk category than anyone else in my office. And so, which was fantastic for us. So they passed with flying colors. They had been implementing our system for the last 3 months, and they were ready for that. And so they're really looking forward to next year and going through that process, because that process for them has always been a very stressful process. Oh, we're coming up for renewal. How much more are we going to have to pay? And this, using our system, they're now in control of a lot of that process. And they're really excited about next year, about getting a discount. So, and I think they will.
Okay. It also sounds like, in addition to putting yourself in position to get better rates or save money, that you're improving your business. Can you talk about that a little bit? Does this lead to sort of business improvements that overall help the business?
What we're doing is we're creating a plug-and-play system for small businesses to create safety and risk control programs, which have been proven for the longest time to drive down claims. That's just how this works, right? But what we find in that is that oftentimes when businesses are putting these in place, there's normally process improvements. And so they end up saving time and money. It's just like when you implement like SOP, standard operating procedures.
Right.
You end up finding the safest method for doing something. And you also find the cheapest method, typically, the one that requires less labor or inputs or whatever. So, yeah, we do typically see improvements like that. And the other thing to take into account, I think people often overlook, is the uninsured costs. So let's say you have a loss, and let's say you have a machine and 3 people on your staff can operate this machine. One person gets hurt. So the medical bills are going to be covered through workers' comp, right? But what happens if you lose a sale because you can't get production back up fast enough? What happens if you need to pay overtime to the other 2 employees? What happens if you need to pull somebody in from another department and train them, or you need to go and hire outside to bring that person in, to bring someone else in? So there's a lot of uninsured costs people don't think about that will really, really impact your business.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was also thinking maybe more basically about hiring and retaining. That, most people want to work in a safe environment, right? And so if I see that you're a company that's really careful about, the work environment, and I feel like this is a more professional company as a result, I'll be more attracted to working for you and staying with you than a place that might feel a little bit like it's flying by the seat of the pants or risky.
Yeah, absolutely. I worked for a company, and when I went around and did assessments of their different locations, I remember just walking in and like the housekeeping was god awful. I mean, there were tripping hazards, there were fire hazards everywhere. And I would take the manager aside and say, "Look, if you bring a new employee on and they walk out here, what kind of company do they think you're running? What kind of business do they think you're running? They're not going to have a lot of confidence. And then if you talk to them about safety, how seriously are they really going to take you? And the place is an absolute mess, right?" So yeah, employees pick up on that for sure. And I think it's really important, if you want that long-term retention, you have a safe place for people to work.
All right. Good stuff, John. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in just 30 seconds with more from John Morlan. Don't go anywhere.
This episode of Winning on Main Street is brought to you by Thryv, the small business management platform that you and your customers will love, no matter where you are. Thryv helps you run your business, keep organized, and get paid faster, all from one login and dashboard. Thryv makes it easy for customers to find you online, instantly interact, and stay engaged. And with free unlimited support 24/7, there really is no comparison. Go to thrive.com/pod for a quick demo to see everything Thryv can do.
And we're back with John Morlan of Smarter Risk, talking about this interesting app that he has developed that helps small businesses improve their business and in turn get better rates on their insurance. Are there certain small businesses whose needs are greater? Like, what's the sweet spot in terms of your ideal client profile? Who are the typical clients who come to you for the Smarter Risk app?
Yeah, so typically it's small, mid-sized businesses, and they're in what we'd call medium risk category. So just to make it concrete, think about like any kind of repair shop, auto body shop, warehouse, restaurant, hotel, light manufacturer, anything like that, where we're not really good or there's not a real use for our product is on the extremes. So if you're a hair salon, our product really just isn't going to help you. You don't have enough risk really for a risk assessment to make a huge impact. On the flip side, if you have a chemical plant with 5,000 employees, you need a different solution. That's not what we built this for.
Got it. Okay. So it's for the average small to medium sized business that has a certain amount of physical activity going on that could create the risk.
Yeah. Most of them that are engaged in some sort of manual labor.
Manual labor, yeah. What don't most small businesses realize about insurance? What do you think most people miss?
They want to get a quote for insurance instead of marketing their risk, right? I mean, think about it this way. An insurance company, just like you, wants to make a profit. Well, how do they do that? They partner with companies that are a good risk, that make sense, right? Where they're not going to pay a whole bunch of claims. So I think if they thought for just a second, think like an insurance company and you'll be okay.
Yeah, makes sense. So just looking back at your company, Smarter Risk, what's next for the company? How's the app doing, first of all? Has it been well received? And where do you see your company in, the next year or two?
Yeah, so we're still pretty early on. We only launched a subscription product for small businesses at the end of March. And then we just released another product for the insurance industry. This is for insurers and for agencies at the end of July. So we're still pretty early on. We are getting some traction. We just signed up another 3 agencies this week, and we've got a regional carrier who's about to use our assessment technology. So, I mean, we're still like a young company. We're not established. We're still in product market fit. So we're still figuring a lot of stuff out, which is fine. I'm actually enjoying that ride. I'm not really good at working for big companies. And so somebody said the other day, they were talking about startups and they said, it's like you're in beast mode. And yeah, it's kind of like that. It's chaos all the time. And we're making stuff up as we go. And we're learning a lot and we're getting feedback from customers and then iterating on the product. And so I'm really excited about the future. We're going to continue to improve the product and make it better, make it faster. And we'll also be able to get into some other markets. Cyber's one we're looking at. Builder's Risk is another one. We think we can really bring some value to customers that way too. So yeah, lot about to happen. Lots about to happen.
And one last question. I'm just curious about how you market the product. Obviously, you're doing this podcast. That's one way you're marketing and on other podcasts. And you told me you have your own podcast. What's the name of your podcast in case listeners want to listen?
It's the Risk Matrix.
Risk Matrix is your podcast. Okay. And are you doing any marketing of the product besides that?
Yeah, we're doing social media. We're doing some inbound marketing. We have a blog too, which we write short, concise blog posts just to help small business owners with all the things we just talked about. Same with the podcast. The podcast is really there to demystify the world of risk management, safety, and insurance. So we're doing those type of marketing. Plus, we have a channel partner program. So when we sign up an agency, for example, they'll typically pay for the assessment and the report for the insured or for the small business owner, and then the small business owner has an option to buy the automation tools and the forms libraries to buy the subscription product. So that's mainly how we're marketing it now. We're just taking it slow. We're not trying to grow too fast. It's very purposeful. I think that the thing is nail it, then scale it, right?
Yeah. And one last question about the product is there a cost to using the app, or it's really just in the insurance? Like how do you make money, I guess, off the app?
Yeah, so there are fees. If you want the app for free, we do have a freemium version. With the freemium version, it's fairly limited. You can do your assessment. It will generate recommendations and a risk score, and you can see all that. What you don't have the ability to do is update your recommendations to improve your score, and you don't have the ability to generate a risk report. But we do have a very, very inexpensive one-time fee if you would like to do that. But if you would like the automation tools, it's a monthly subscription with a 1-year commitment.
And what is the one-time fee and what is the subscription fee?
The one-time fee is $10, and
Okay.
the subscription fee is $50 a month for 12 months. So it's a $600 annual subscription.
Got
So
it.
we priced it to make it pretty affordable for just about any small business.
Okay, terrific. Well, John, I want to thank you for coming on the show. This has been great, and hopefully our listeners will check out smarterrisk.com and get the app. Appreciate it.
It sounds great. Thanks for having me, Gord. Appreciate it.
And I want to thank our producer, Tim Alima, and coordinators, Diet Barnett and Daniel Huddleston. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please tell your colleagues, friends, and family to subscribe, and please leave us a 5-star review. Really appreciate it. Helps us in the rankings. Small business runs better on Thryv. Get a free demo at thryv.com/pod. And check out our new free product, our freemium product, Command Center at thryv.com. Until next time, make it a great week.